Guys, look what I brought to the potluck.
Hey.
Ooh, what's that?
I've heard that curcumin, which is a component of turmeric, has longevity benefits because it improves antioxidant defenses. So I brought these turmeric juice shots.
Oh my god, I heard that too. That's why I brought this coconut chickpea curry that has turmeric in it.
Wait, what are antioxidants? Antioxidants are molecules that defend our cells against reactive oxidative species, otherwise abbreviated as ROS. When our cells' everyday functions go wrong, this can sometimes cause accumulation of ROS, and these ROSs are quite unstable due to the presence of unpaired electrons. And as these ROS accumulate, damage builds up. It can also harm our tissues, and this damage has been proposed to be the possible cause of aging. However, certain components like antioxidants can neutralize these harmful free radicals by donating electrons to them, thereby decreasing the likelihood of oxidative damage buildup. And due to its chemical structure, curcumin is a type of antioxidant, meaning that it donates electrons to ROS to decrease oxidative stress.
Yeah, you're right. I saw a cool study about that. Given the antioxidant capacities of curcumin, researchers wanted to study its effects on yeast to see if it could help increase yeast lifespan. When they gave different doses of curcumin to normal or wild-type yeast, they found that it led to a significant increase in lifespan compared to yeast that were not given curcumin. Interestingly, when they did the same thing for yeast that didn't have functional antioxidant enzymes like superoxidase mutase or key proteins that help repair DNA damage like RAD52, the ability to extend lifespan disappeared. This seemed to suggest that curcumin can help extend lifespan, but only when our cells have functional antioxidant pathways and mechanisms in place to repair damaged DNA. So from what I read so far, it's promising that curcumin can have a positive impact on lifespan in yeast, and I wonder how this might translate to humans.
Wait, I also heard something similar. Like in the study that I was reading, it focused on curcumin's effect on the cellular lifespan of postmitotic cells. They also used yeast cells and found that when curcumin was introduced to wild-type healthy yeast cells, it extended their lifespan. But interestingly though, it worked best at a low concentration, around 25 micromoles, and lifespan was seen to increase significantly, with survival rates increasing to 90%. However, higher doses weren't as effective, and it had little benefits or even slightly negative effects. What was even more interesting was that they also tested yeast cells that had mitochondrial dysfunction, which were cells that lacked key components needed for mitochondrial respiration, and curcumin still increased their lifespan. But in this case, it was found that higher concentration of curcumin was actually more effective to increase lifespan. They also figured that curcumin works through inhibiting TORC1, which regulates cell growth and metabolism. But I'm also not sure if this is a good idea, because at the same time, this also increases oxidative stress. Isn't that bad for us?
Yeah, so I actually saw something similar the other day on the news, and apparently above 20 micromolars of curcumin induced severe cell death in skin cells. Also, oxidative stress increased after exposure to curcumin, so I'm guessing too much curcumin wouldn't be too good for you. Though in that same study, the researchers mentioned that it can be good for you at small doses, which is called the hormesis effect. Despite increasing oxidative stress, curcumin triggers an enzyme called hemioxygenase 1 and glutathione, which are enzymes that combat these oxidative stressors. So even though it initially increases the oxidative stress, curcumin can train our bodies to defend against it through these enzymes. But specifically, it was shown that these benefits were under 20 micromolars of curcumin. And these benefits were mostly for younger cells as well, because older cells already had antioxidants to protect against oxidative stress.
That's really interesting. And now that I've read the rest of my paper, I see that they also did a follow-up experiment to test the effects of curcumin on the amount of ROS in the yeast. And it looks like they found that both doses of curcumin led to a significant increase in ROS content compared to the yeast that were not fed with curcumin. This sounded weird at first, but now I see how it might relate to this hormetic effect that we're talking about, where curcumin can induce some oxidative stress in the cells. This might make them better at dealing with oxidative stress in the future, which could explain the extended lifespan that they observed.
Yeah, well, in my paper, they talked about how curcumin increased cellular ATP levels, which enhanced mitochondrial production, but at the same time, this caused production for more ROS as byproducts and caused oxidative stress. And they also found that the expression of SOD2 levels went up after curcumin, which means that the cells were sensing more oxidative stress. So I guess in the end, mild stress from curcumin activates protective pathways and is actually beneficial, but too much stress overwhelms our system. But then I think like the hormesis effect was only seen in the wild-type yeast cells and not the yeast cells with the mitochondrial dysfunction, which could suggest that the hormesis effect depends on mitochondrial functionality.
Oh, that makes sense. It is interesting that cell culture and preclinical studies show a lot of promise, but this contrasts with the mild to moderate response shown in humans.
Wait, why is that?
This is because curcumin has a low systemic absorption. A study has shown that crude curcumin by itself is poorly absorbed and quickly metabolized in the liver. However, this caveat, I guess, can be overcome by first being aware of it and also trying other strategies. For example, one study showed that co-administration of curcumin with naturally occurring fats called lecithin enhanced the absorption by preserving curcumin from degradation and also increasing absorption in the GI intestines. One study, the same study, used an optimized formulation of curcumin known as Meriva oral capsules to test the health effects of curcumin dosage around 180 milligrams per day among cancer patients. And this actually showed a 30-fold higher increase in absorption compared to the control group.
Huh, that's interesting. So I'm assuming curcumin is best ingested orally with certain supplements?
The curcumin benefits don't stop there. The study also found there to be reduction in serum levels of inflammatory mediators and biomarkers, so this showed that curcumin is effective in suppressing systemic inflammation in the body. This is relevant because curcumin reduces inflammation in the body, and inflammation is a process that involves chronic, persistent, low-grade inflammation in the body, which can accelerate aging. So if curcumin targets inflammation, that means it decreases the risk of various age-related diseases like Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease, cancer, and arthritis.
Wow, I didn't know it had so many health benefits. So like, what would you recommend and how much should we take daily?
There are oral capsules that are commercially available that could actually help with the absorption of it, but a much easier way to incorporate it in our daily lives is in our diet, because we can just add turmeric into our diet. For example, my grandma adds turmeric in her cooking and her snacks. The recommended daily dosage is 2 teaspoons serving of turmeric. You could add that to smoothies, yogurts, drinks. And so to enhance the absorption of their benefits, you can also combine it with fat-soluble compounds like fatty foods like oils and eggs, black pepper, avocados, nuts, and seeds to really make sure that the curcumin can enter the bloodstream.
So I guess this is a topic that still hasn't been concluded. And there's just so much more research that needs to be done to prove that it extends lifespan in humans. But so far, it does seem that curcumin is best taken in small doses because it induces mild oxidative stress that our bodies can learn to protect itself against.
No, I totally agree. Like we were talking about earlier, the mild oxidative stress can actually be beneficial for our bodies, just like how there was the hormesis effect when we're taking curcumin.
I agree. It definitely seems like curcumin has a hormetic effect on lifespan, where a small dose is okay, but a larger one can be bad. It's also important to note that the studies concluding this were done in non-human model organisms, such as yeast, so it seems like more research is needed to make stronger conclusions about its effects on human lifespan.
That's a great point, Mason, and I think another caveat is that there's limited absorption in humans. So we really have to think about the health benefits of curcumin, because I think if we take it efficiently through combining it in foods that can aid in absorption, then maybe we can really get that benefit of suppression of inflammation. But don't expect it to miraculously add years to your life.